Hello creative friends, this is Joy. I hope everyone's doing well. So I decided to do some jelly printing today, and I have some stencils here that I created that I want to may use, some masks that I created, some music note papers, book pages, line paper, and printer paper. I also have some jelly prints. I have a brayer, and I have a bunch of acrylic paint. I have this pack of different things in there to use on a jelly plate. I may use some of this stuff. It has some stencils and punchinella and stuff in it that I may use on the jelly plate, and some textures and things. Some bubble wrap, of course. Bubble wrap is always fun on the jelly plate. And I have this huge drawer just full of stuff that I've just been collecting and throwing in here that works great on a jelly plate as well. So I may pull from that drawer and use some of that stuff. So basically, I'm putting down just a little bit of paint, and I brayer it out, and you want to make sure that you don't put it on too thick. And then once I get it rolled out, I clean off my brayer onto the deli paper, and then I put down some of the music note papers on the plate and pull it up. And just basically, to start with, I'm trying to get my jelly plate going and trying to get some color on some of these papers. And I really like that, like here, it left behind some yellow so that when I put down the green and then pull prints of that, I'll get some of the yellow in with the green. And so that's the other thing too. It's like you have to somewhat be cognizant of color theory so that you don't mix colors that are going to clash together and end up making a muddy mess. And here I've got some tan that I decided to put down to see if I can get some more of that green and yellow up. And so it's pulling up, and as you can see, yes, it's pulling up some of the tan, some of the yellow and some of the green that was stuck on the plate. And if you do it too thin, like you saw there, it could be hard to pull it up off the plate because then it'll like stick to the plate. And here I'm going in with some blue-green or some light blue, baby blue, whatever you want to call it, and put that down on the plate and pulling that up. So to start with, I cover, and you could see in some of these papers a little bit of that yellow and green is coming up. And here the music paper sticks to the plate. I'm like, seriously? And I'm like, well, we're going to leave it on there, we're going to go over it, and we're going to see if when I pull the next thing, piece of paper up, if it pulls any of that up with it. So I'm putting down some paper and pulling up as much as I can, and then doing that, and sure enough, it pulled it up. Look at that. That's awesome. I was really happy with that. But as happy as I was with that, I tried to do that again, and it didn't quite work. It's like when you don't want it to do it, it does it, and then when you do want it to do it, it doesn't do it. I don't know. So anyway, I go through and just keep playing and adding color to these papers so that I can, have some color to start. And there it pulled up. But then I believe when I went over it, I don't think it came up again the second time like it did the first time. Let's see. I decided to put a full sheet on there that time and see if I could get it to pull up. Yeah, it seemed to pull up, but you can't see any of the music paper that's there because the paint, I guess, covered it. So anyway, that's what I continue to do, is just continue to roll on paint and pull prints to get some color on a lot of these papers. that I had pulled out. And the other reason why you don't want the paint to be too thick is because, I still want to be able to see the text or the music print underneath, so that's another reason why I didn't want to put it on too thick. Although there were a few times that I did unfortunately put on thicker than I had wanted it to be. So here I lay down some more of that blue color, and I decide to try the bubble wrap on here. And then I lay my papers down and pull up the prints. And I really like the way these turned out. I was pretty happy with those. And this blue is almost completely gone, so I figured I might as well use it up. And so I get out as much of the rest of it as I can. And I'm also figuring, well, heck, I can just brayer clean off my brayer on some of the sheets of paper as well. And so, yeah, I'm just trying to use up the rest of this blue paint that I had and cover, put some color on some of these papers. So here I do the bubble wrap again. I decide to do the other side. These are the only ones that I did the other side of, though. I don't know. It's like it depends on what you're gonna use it for. If you're gonna use them as pages in a journal, you might want to do both sides. But if you're just gonna use them to tear up and use as collaging or whatever, then I guess there's no reason to do both sides. So I didn't do the other side of most of these, of any of the others actually, but I may or may not go back and do that at some point. I don't know, we'll see. So here I'm using some of the other texturing things that I have to try to add some interest to some of these pages. And this one here I really like. It's like a piece of wallpaper or something. And then pulling up a print. These pages are a little bigger. And so I'm trying to cover them. Here I'm adding some of that tan paint or cream or whatever it's called. And then adding more to these 2 pages. So yeah, it's like, you have to kind of experiment to figure out. And here's where I was trying to get it to stick. See if I could get some more of that to stick, and it didn't do it. But yeah, like you just have to kind of experiment with how much paint to use on the plate. You don't want to use too little, but you don't want to use too much either. And I know there was a couple of times where I really kind of used more than I needed to. And here, just continuing to add paint to these pages. And trying to cover these bigger pieces of paper, because with the smaller pieces I was able to lay like side by side, and they pretty much covered. But the bigger pieces I could only lay one fully on there and the other one halfway on there. So then I decided to start using my masks. Oop, here's where I poured out way too much paint, so I had to get some of it back in there. And it still was too much. Still was way too much paint. So I'm trying to get some of it off the brayer. And I'm using my little masks that I made, putting them on the jelly plate just randomly. And then taking some of the papers and trying to get up some of that paint. Again, way too much paint. So I was able to pull a couple of prints, and then I pull up my masks, and I actually use the masks as stamps to even add, because there was so much paint. So I was stamping them on papers to get some of the paint off, and then going over the masks with the brayer. And you can see there where I did some stamping with some of the circles. And here I'm just trying to show you, I'm grabbing like some of the paper that I had already did some jelly printing on, and trying to use up some of the paint on these masks. On those papers. And then I take some other papers, since after I pulled the masks up, and start pulling those, pulling a print for on those. And let's see, I'm going to do some green, or what is this, like a blue-green? I'm not sure. But I couldn't get anything out of it, so I'm having to use a pair of pliers, because the top I couldn't even screw the top. It was like on there so tightly or whatever. And this particular bottle was just about empty as well. So here I'm just using some more of these masks that I made. And it's like after using these masks, you could I should have had a container of water or something to throw them in to rinse them off or whatever, but I didn't bother. I didn't bother. I just decided that it doesn't matter. So they have paint on them. Oh well, I'll be using them again, I'm sure. So yeah, they got pretty much covered in paint. And again, I'm trying to pull them off and use them as stamps on, a piece of paper to try to get some of that paint off. I didn't have quite as much paint on this plate as I did the one before with the blue. And then I'm laying down some of the papers that I put paint on already to try to pull up some of that. And it's I guess it dried too quickly, unfortunately. And so I was like, I don't want to put more paint down, so I decided to put some matte medium on there to see if maybe I could get it to pull up with, have a matte medium on there, get some of the more of that to pull up. But I don't know if I didn't wait long enough or what I did, but that didn't seem like that helped much either. So I don't know. I was like, well, that didn't work. So I believe I ended up just putting some more paint on the plate, and then going ahead and trying to pull a print with just more paint. Yeah, I just put some green on there and figured, well, I'll just put more paint on there then and keep going. I don't know. Here, yeah, I decided to use some of the hexagon shapes that I created and triangles. And putting them down randomly and having them hang off the edge, that kind of helps. And like the triangles, having them go in different directions instead of all in the same direction or whatever. And then pulling them off, and again trying to do some stamping with them and trying to get some paint off of them. and then using the brayer to see if that'll help get some of the paint, which it does a little bit. It helps. And then doing the same with the triangles. And the little palette knife was helping pick up the little masks off the jelly plate, so that was helping. And then using the brayer again to try to brayer over those, and then pulling a print for what's left on the jelly plate. And yep, it turned out pretty good, I guess. Turned out all right. So anyway, after I got done doing all of that, I decided to go through my papers to see which papers needed more. Because some of them I really liked, so I was okay with them, and then others I wanted to go ahead and add more to them. So I pulled out my black paint so I could like add marks and different things. And I'm going in my drawer and finding, different things in the drawer, like these little tubes that I can use to kind of stamp circles on the papers. And so I'm just deciding, that some of these just need something more added to them and some marks and stuff. So that's what I'm doing here, is just showing you different marks and things that you can do and make with different objects. And that first thing that I was stamping with that was making rectangles, I don't even know where I got that from. It was like a plastic piece that was on a corner of a canvas or something. But it works perfectly for little triangles, or not triangles, but little boxes or whatever. And here I'm just doing some sgraffito kind of, drawing or painting or whatever you want to call it. I ended up doing mark making, so I find a paintbrush that I wanted to do marks with and just doing a bunch of dashes for marks using a paintbrush. And then smaller ones, I ended up grabbing a smaller brush instead of using the side of the one and just making a bunch of marks. So I just filled up this page with little hash marks or whatever you want to call them. And, as I was jelly printing these and, I was just throwing them on the floor. And then as I'm doing, the marks here, I'm using the back of, here I'm using actually a little paintbrush and just dabbing it on the paper. And then I end up using the back of a paintbrush to do even smaller, like little, dots or whatever. And I got to thinking, well, you could also like do like a splattering or whatever, but I didn't feel like doing all that, makes too much of a mess. So here I'm just doing dots with the back of the paintbrush. But yeah, after making all these marks, I was, again, just throwing them on the floor, laying them across the floor to dry. Then here this is a cap that's off of a air freshener thing for those like plug-ins or whatever. I thought that made it interesting shape. So I used that as, to stamp across there. And then this here is like a finger dauber where the dauber part wore off, and so I thought, well, I can use that to make little circles. So I threw that in my drawer, and I'm just covering it with paint and stamping it on there. And here is another little circle thing that I had. It makes little circles. Oh, I think what I did was I turned the dauber around, and now I'm using the other side of it. Instead of the part where the sponge was, this is the other side. Makes it interesting little circles to cover that one with. And so here I'm showing you all the papers. These are the ones that I liked as they were and decided to keep them like that. All the music note pages and book pages and stuff. And the one is where I scribbled in the paint and used other stencils, and these are, thought were fine as they were. I liked them like they were. Didn't feel like I needed to add more. And then these are the ones where I added all the different marks to them. So I really hope that you like this video and that you give it a thumbs up. I hope that if you want to see more, that you subscribe. I would also appreciate it if you have any questions. You can comment or ask any questions. I'd love to hear from you. And you can hit the notification bell if you want to see more. I'm trying to build up my stash because I have some junk journals that I want to make coming up. And so yeah, I felt like I needed to build up my stash again. And then here I'm showing you how I store them. So I have this zipper, and I've got some papers left in here from where I was doing it on Gelli print and other papers, but I needed more, so I'm just adding those to this little zipper pouch. So I appreciate you stopping by and watching my video, and we'll talk to you later. Bye bye.